You know what? I love my baby sister. Love her to death. She knows how to get on somebody's nerves sometimes, but that's family, if we're being honest. And look, I'm one of three younger brothers to an older sister. So I know what it's like to get on somebody's nerves. I bring all that up because, look, I'm supposed to be the movie guy in the family. I mean, look, let's face it. Let's be honest. I am, frankly, the movie guy in the family. But my siblings have educated me on several movies over the years that I don't know that I would have gotten to. I might have gone around to watching them at some point. But without them, I don't know. Life would be much duller, and therefore my movie tastes and things that I've seen or whatever would have, wouldn't have been as expansive and things. So one such movie that my baby sister, brought to my attention is the one we're going to be discussing today. So I have some thoughts. I'd like to get into it. Today's movie is Weapons. Let's talk about it. When I think about this movie, I find myself imagining how killer the pitch meeting must have been. When you sit down to the executives, whoever was going to be greenlighting this movie, and just tell them, hey, look, one night at 2:17 in the morning, which is an oddly specific time, but forget all that. 2:17 in the morning, a bunch of kids leave their homes in the middle of the night and run out into the darkness. And then the next morning, a teacher comes to class and only one of her students shows up. That sounds like a immediately interesting and compelling pitch. I didn't do it right, but the idea is enough to spark interest, I think, for me. I immediately want to know what happens. You mean to tell me all these kids ran out in the middle of the night at the same exact time and no one knows where they went? They were just missing, just up and disappeared. And then they don't come to school the next day or for many days or and only one of their classmates shows up. I don't know about you, but I immediately want to start unpacking the layers, find out what's going on. So Weapons is the follow-up to Zack Cregger's successful Barbarians, which I still need to see, which might be coming before spooky season is over. My review might be on this channel here, but Cregger has written, directed, produced, and co-scored this film. It's got, obviously if you've heard anything about it, you may have seen it when it dropped. It got strong reviews, and it has very strong performances. It's a solidly made horror mystery film. So what do we have going on? This is a mystery surrounding 17 kids from the same classroom who disappear on the same night at the same exact time. The town they live in is scrambling to figure out what happened to them. You can imagine city officials, parents, school officials, everybody is up in arms trying to figure out what's going on. The one person, well, two people, who are hanging in the wind a little bit. You got Alex, the young kid, the sole student, Miss Gandy's class, who did not disappear, and Miss Gandy. They're in the center of this mystery while everyone is trying to figure out what happened. There are several strong things about this movie. Immediately, one of them is the premise. It's a solid enough premise to build a mystery around, and it works. It's quite effective. The next thing this movie has going for it is the acting. It's very strong acting on display. I think Josh Brolin and Julia Garner obviously get top marks. They are the anchors of this movie. Alden Ehrenreich is also very good. Benedict Wong and Toby Huss are also very good. But I think the other standout really is Kerry Christopher, who plays the young kid Alex. This kid, I think, he's the unsung. He's like the real hero of this movie, and he's quite compelling. Some child actors, you've seen this. There are a lot of child actors sometimes where you can see a slight bit of awkwardness in their performances. Very few of them are supremely natural. If you look at Dakota Fanning, Elle Fanning for that matter, Henry Thomas from E.T., there are several kids like that were children actors that are just real. Like they don't feel like they're acting, and Kerry Christopher feels like he's not acting. Granted, the scenario he's placed in feels like once you get into the headspace of it and the mood of what's happening to him and what he has to go through, it feels like, oh yeah, any kid that age would be pretty scared. It's not, and I think the way Christopher handles it is very well done. I want to go back and talk about Julia Garner for a minute because I think she's very good. She turns in a really strong performance as Miss Gandy, which, first of all, that's an amazing teacher name. It's the perfect teacher name. I had a teacher named Mrs. Gange Tamari, and we called her Mrs. Gange for short. So it reminded me of that. It's like, oh, Mrs. Gandy, that's Miss Gandy's the perfect name. She plays someone who is under intense scrutiny by the town she lives in. She's not getting let off the hook. Parents, everyone seems to think she has something to do with the missing children, and she doesn't. So naturally, she wants to figure out also what's going on. She's being told to stay out of it, to not talk to the remaining student, and it's unfortunate. And you feel the weight on her, and she plays it very well. I also wanted to go back and expand a little bit on Josh Brolin's performance because I think he easily gives one of the most heartfelt and emotional performances in the movie. As a parent whose son is a student in Miss Ganji's class, and he's also missing, and you really feel how that weighs on him and how he also wants to figure out what's happening. The way it's handled, first of all, it's written very well, and what Josh Brolin does with it is very good. It feels much more real, very grounded. Yeah, tremendous performance. I know I said Kerry Christopher was a standout, and he is, but I think the only other character in this film who gives a performance that is really the exclamation point of this movie is Amy Madigan as Aunt Gladys. She is terrifying and a little weird, a little kooky, and it works. I was reading somewhere that Zack Cregger originally had a chapter or a section of the film devoted to her, and they decided to not do that. And I think it was a good move. I think the more mystery Aunt Gladys is surrounded by, the better. To me, it's like a character like Michael Myers or Jason or something like that. When you do too much backstory stuff, the characters lose their mystique. This is one of the reasons I think I love Halloween, the movie, so much. And early versions of some of these slasher films that don't really tell us a lot about who the threat is. Because really, we don't need to know, I don't think. I think it's nice to have backstory, and so there's some degree of backstory is cool, but I think when you do too much of it, it starts to become less scary. That's part of why things are so unsettling, because you don't know stuff. You don't know stuff about the threat. You can't understand it, so that makes it more scary. And I think not having a chapter devoted to Aunt Gladys was, again, the right move. Amy Madigan really destroys her role in this movie. She devours. It's very effective. She's probably the scariest thing in the movie outside of the obvious weapons. And they're scary too, but the reason they're scary is because of Aunt Gladys. And Aunt Gladys as a character is just so scary. And you put yourself in the position as Alex, who is the nephew of this woman, and you can feel his fear, and you're also afraid. And that's Amy Madigan gets major props for that, because she's the reason that she's actually, I feel like if you think about it, as well executed as this movie is, the movie is hinged on Aunt Gladys. If she doesn't work, the movie falls apart. Aunt Gladys is, she's key in this movie. I mentioned chapters and how Aunt Gladys was supposed to have her own chapter. And now this movie is split up into several chapters from the perspective of several characters. So each main character gets a chapter, and we see the story from their perspective. And those chapters are on a collision course. They will converge at some point. It's a unique way. It's not something you see often in a lot of movies, but coming up with the decision to tell a story in that way, I think you could have told it linearly and it could have still worked. Just have things cut away and have, you could have done it with with chapters being less pronounced. But there's something about this that feels almost like reading a good book that has chapters from different character perspectives. I think in that way, you worry a lot more about every character because they're the main characters of their own thread. Whereas in a more traditional movie, it's clear you have a main character and a supporting character, and everybody else is like the tertiary characters, whatever it is. And I think the same is true of this movie too, but because every chapter is led by a particular character, I just think it keeps the audience more on their toes. At least how I read it, it seems like, oh, they're all main characters and any one of them can get jacked up throughout the process of the story. So it was a cool decision. I like that. I want to highlight Larkin Sepul for a second because I think he does some tremendous cinematography, particularly just for the nighttime sequences. The way things are lit or not lit and the way those shots and scenes are photographed is very well done. It's really unsettling. It really makes you feel without anything happening on screen. How it's captured is pretty cool. Also, I think when things get rolling, there are certain sequences where there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of running. If you've seen the marketing, you know that there's a good deal of running in this movie. And there are some instances where the camera is capturing action. It's very fluid too. Particularly, I think the last act is a good example of this. When things really get going and there's a bunch of running and a lot of things happening and people are being chased, the camera is tracking all that movement very well. And it's very kinetic. Things are getting broken. People are running through fences, through glass, through things. And the camera you're on it. It's a little bit anxiety inducing, but there's a real rush to it that you don't want it to stop. You want it to keep going. It's like a good ride, good thrill ride. By the same token, when things are quiet and you have there's like still moments, which there's a good deal of quiet moments in this movie, and how they're photographed, both in the daytime and the nighttime, is really good. So Larkin Sepul, excellent work. Cinematography is very effective. Other things I want to mention I thought were pretty cool was Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin plays a character named Archer, which is the perfect name for this guy. He's very much a go-getter. He's a straight shooter. He's a construction worker, and his knowledge as a construction worker plays a direct role in the plot of the story. I'm a fan. I love when movies do this. When you have characters who have normal jobs and just regular jobs, and that their jobs tie directly into the mystery, into the plot somehow. Their skill something they do every day, it gets to now come into play with something that's not a usual situation, where your kid gets kidnapped, or you get kidnapped, or there's a monster you got to deal with, whatever the situation is, how those things are not usual things, but you get to use your usual skills for something that's unusual. I always perk up when I see characters who are like, do their everyday stuff to help do some other stuff that they don't have to deal with all the time. So you really get to see Archer's knowledge of construction and sort of geography, and you see that be put on display. And I like how it impacts the story. And it also feels like it's something that gives him something to do. So many of the adults in this movie feel powerless because their kids just went away and they couldn't do anything to stop them. But when you have a character like Archer, who's one of the few parents who's taking matters into his own hands against the wishes of police and anybody else, like his marriage is suffering, but the only thing he can do is what he does every day, which is construction stuff. His marriage is suffering, his job is suffering. But what's cool is that he can use his job skills to get closer to finding his kid. I'm a fan of that. One of the things that kind of bothered me about the movie, well, it didn't bother me, but I just kind of dropped my impression of the movie. Again, make no mistake, this is a good movie. It's very well executed. I think it's a strong mystery. and all of that's there. But I think what took away from it a little bit for me was the reveal about Aunt Gladys. I think, on the one hand, for movies like this, there can only be so many things at the root of whatever the mystery is. And there's not that many fresh things under the sun that we haven't seen or that don't feel like. But I think how they're executed is what matters. And so when I first saw it, I went from, this is a solid movie, solid mystery, to when the reveals come, like, oh, okay, well, that's all it was, or that's the, But upon further reflection, and I thought about it again and looked at it again, I don't know that I have the same problem. Because again, I thought, well, what else could it have been? Like, what else could they do? What are the other things? What are the other reveals you could have that would make this better? I don't know that there is anything. I feel like anything else might have probably diminished it further. So I think when I thought about it more, looked at it again, all the reveals are, it works. It keeps things, this is a personal situation, very personal story. It's very insular. I think anything else would have been like wilder. Like if the kids ended up running off somewhere, ended up in some kind of other dimension, that would have been weird. Or if they ended up in some kind of like, haunted house randomly, like that would have been weird too. Like the way it is actually fine. So I initially had a problem with it, feeling like it wasn't enough, but I don't know. I don't believe that anymore. But yeah, because there's only so many things you can do. And given that, what Zack Cregger and his team did is cool. Like, it's fine. It works. And I think above all, it's not overdone. The movie doesn't overextend itself. And I think because of that, it works. It doesn't do too much. It's not overly long. And there aren't all kinds of outlandish ideas that feel incongruent to what we see. Everything feels organic, and that's a good deal why it works too. So I'm no longer soured on the fact that the reveals feel less satisfying, because at the end of the day, they work for the story being told, and that's enough. So if you're looking for something to watch this Halloween season, Weapons is a good one to watch. It's very strong. It's got good horror elements. It's a sound mystery. It's got good acting. I think you might find something pleasing about this movie. If you're a horror fan, this is a decent one to get into. So if you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned. More reviews coming on the way. In the meantime, I'm getting out of here, but take it easy. Have a good afternoon, and I'll see you in the next video.